This is Arcturus, and you are watching Escape from the Matrix. Today, we have a very special guest, my friend Elijah. How are you, Elijah?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, I've known Elijah for some time now when we had some amazing spiritual spirit experiences together. And we have been talking about the subject of extraterrestrials because it's something that, for some reason, has been happening a lot in my life. I mean, the whole people sharing their experiences with extraterrestrials. It started at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and I've been having this intuition that alien masters are helping mankind. And of course they've been helping since long time ago, but I feel like this year something's happening, and um the help they're giving us is very powerful. And so a lot of people are having experiences with extraterrestrials, including me. And so my friend Elijah, um, he has some really cool stories about his alien encounters. So, Elijah, please tell us a little bit about these experiences.
Sure. Let me give the audience just a little bit of some context. And like we had mentioned, maybe this is a woven story. In early 2022, so it's been about 2 years now, was going through a challenging time. I was in China at the time, and lockdowns were happening, and I had recently been let go from my company that had been acquired, and it was just, and I was about to get married, and just lots of things were going on. There was a lot of dynamics moving, and I asked one of my friends who I really love and trust, a Brazilian spiritualist that has many beautiful practices, and he's a family constellation host practitioner. I asked him if he'd do a little counseling for me, and so I told him what was going on. And at the end of me dumping out everything that was happening in my life, he said, "Have you ever journeyed to meet your spirit animal?" And I just kind of laughed. I was like, dude, I just told you about all these real world like problems that I'm having. And now you're asking me about spirit animals and journeying to meet them. And I had no idea what that meant. I had never really heard about spirit animals so much. I mean, I think I'd heard the term, but I didn't know what it meant. And I definitely had never heard about journeying before. So anyways, maybe for a future episode we'll talk about this. I had a journey that was extremely powerful and kind of blew my mind, and it took me down the rabbit hole of core shamanism, or practicing drum-driven meditation and journeying. And I began in really intensely studying the subject and journeying on sometimes a daily basis for months. The uh, the journeys gradually became more intense in some ways, and more interesting. And there was also a point where I started to realize, from a few journeys, that I didn't feel like I was maybe journeying in that I was going to upper worlds and lower worlds and middle worlds as traditional shamanic practices teach, but that I was maybe projecting out. At that time, I didn't really know what that meant, but I had one unique experience where I went to Journey, and and I was actually rereading the journal entry from this not too long ago. And as I was falling to what I thought was the lower world, there was like almost like a flashlight signaling me. And when I came to, I was on this alien landscape, like on an alien planet. And the soil was kind of like bluish, like dust. And the rocks looked like they were made of like some sort of liquid. And I started to navigate this planet, and it was almost like I entered into these really big domes, and it was almost like where there was an extinct planet. Like I could see that there were these biospheres, these biodomes that had been broken, and there was used to be, it looked like maybe forests or vegetation inside, and maybe even dwellings or something, but the whole landscape had just been turned to dust. And that journey goes a little bit further, but I realized through a series of events relating with that journey, and also working with my sister on some journey work, that that was very likely an alien planet, and more of a traditional, like, kind of gray alien planet, because we or I or both of us entered into the planet, and I didn't see any aliens, but my sister did. Well, these sequence of events and some other journeys I had made me lead to suspect that maybe something else was going on. And so that's where I actually got into learning about astral projection, or OBEs. Um, and those are the things that you and I connected on, actually. Was you're also an astral projectionist that's much more, I would say, much more accomplished and experienced than myself. Um, but we definitely connected on that point. And, and I told you about shamanic journeying, and that's where I think our love and appreciation for each other really started to blossom when we first met. Um, I can't hear you, by the way. I don't know if your microphone's off or not working, but
Can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you
Oh,
now.
sorry.
Yeah. So so that led me down the rabbit hole of astral projection, and learning more about how to do that. And I really fell in love with Robert Monroe, as many people in that astral project do, and read all of his books and listened to everything, and got really into the Monroe Institute, and went through the Gateway tapes actually several times, and had fabulous experiences. I never met any aliens during that time, but I had really wonderful, especially preparatory work for the afterlife, which I think is one of the main points of the Gateway program, and felt very appreciative. However, I really cycled back to more shamanic drum driven style journeying this past summer. And the reason why is because in that space, uh, I've experienced healing myself, and also performing healing for other people, for family members. And my wife, this summer, she went through, or we went through, a miscarriage. And during that time, I did some journey work to do some spirit body healing, and also putting our child to rest. At the point, I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but later I came to find that that's the work that I was also performing at that time. And so that got me, because I wanted to interact actually with our son in the astral. I had literally taken his body, and I had laid it to rest next to the tree in a forest that I visit to do my shamanic journey, to go to the upper world and the lower world. This tree is the one that gives me access to that place. So anybody that doesn't understand shamanic journeying, part of the initial technique after you start listening to drums is you close your eyes and visualize a place, typically in nature, where you go, and you will look for something that will take you up, or something that will lead down, like a crevice in the ground, or a rope going up or something. Well, for me, it's a very large tree that I interacted with in Patagonia many years ago. And it's a very wise tree. It taught me a lesson many years ago. And so I placed my child there, and I started doing journey work again, more intensely, because I wanted to interact with him. And there's some really beautiful stories and kind of insights through that also process, a lot of healing for myself. And and that's, part of the practicalness of the work that we do, is this isn't all just like, magic woo woo visualizing things. There's really real world like impact that you can have on your emotions and deal and processing experiences you go through. And that's part of what I've learned after doing this for a couple of years, that there's real magic in reality that gets to interplay with all of this. So in one of my first encounters with my son, as he has now grown into a vine, and he is also able to help me with my journeys.
Wow.
And one of the first times that I found that out was not too long ago, just about 2 months or so. I went to go see him, and there was two little leaves coming out and just a little sprout in the ground, and I was super excited. Like, I leaned down and I was like, "Oh, what's this?"
Wow.
And he's turning into a plant. And as soon as I got down on my hands and knees and went to look at him really close, he grew up and just surrounded me and grabbed me and took me up in and started taking me up. And I intuitively knew, oh, my son's taking me up to the upper planes, the upper world here. And so he takes me up through some layers and eventually drops me off. And I want to really kind of stay engaged. And the reason why I say he is because I really got a strong masculine energy from that point. Actually, before then, I wasn't so sure about what energy source the child was. And I really wanted to stay and engage with the vine, but it actually turned me around and pushed me further into the journey. My question was kind of silly at the time because I intuitively already knew the answer. So I got the answer and it came, and kind of like a duh kind of moment. And so I was like, oh, well, what else can I do up here? And I realized that, oh, I've been up to the upper worlds many times, but I've actually never asked to meet a guide, which is a very typical entity that you'll meet in the upper realm. So I
Yeah.
asked to meet a guide, and I was immediately told that, okay, you can meet your guide, but you're really not going to like the physical appearance of the guide. And I
Whatever
was like,
that means.
okay, well, yeah, yeah. I was like, and I automatically started thinking, I was like, oh, does this mean it's going to look like some sort of religious leader, like a Jesus or a Buddha or Muhammad or something? Like, that wouldn't really be my cup of tea, because of where I'm at personally. And then I was like, oh no, is it going to be someone really horrific like Hitler or something? I was like, no, it can't be Hitler. And and so I accept that. And what comes down is this like seed pod, and it's about my height, and it's right in front of me, and it spins around and kind of opens up, and there's a little like 3 foot tall gray alien in there. And I'm just like, yep, I don't really like this. I'm not into aliens. I don't, I this isn't normal for me because I'm not really, I don't, the only thing that engagement I've had with alien stuff is mainly from my childhood watching, X-Files, and aliens are largely considered, kind of malevolent entities. And so why would one be my spirit guide? I was very confused. Well, he took me into another room, and he showed me some other things that, again, I won't really talk about here because I feel like it's not super related. But essentially, he showed me a meeting of aliens that were observing humans. and it was too intense for me. So when things get too intense in my meditations or in my journeys or projections, I just sit down and start meditating in my journey.
Wait, 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 wait. Let's go back to what this alien looked like.
Yeah,
The alien that the master, the alien master. Because,
yeah,
I also have a story that I want to share maybe later. And so please,
please.
please try to describe it.
Well, so when it turns around, I mean, it's literally a small, a small kind of more like classic gray alien with the, kind of bulbous looking head and big eyes and very small and frail looking. And yeah, just kind of a classic looking alien, except for it was small. Typically, when I think of gray aliens or aliens, I think of these very, very tall, guys that are, are at least 6 foot
Yeah.
tall or, a couple meters tall. Um, but this one was quite small. I had never seen one so small before.
Wait, I'm confused. What about the one we just talked about, the one with the white hair that is like 10 feet tall? Wasn't that the guy that
That's a different dream. That's a
all right,
different
all right, all right,
journey. That's
all
a
right.
future journey.
Okay,
We're
okay.
we're leading up to that story
All right,
because
all
I feel
right.
like if I told that story right off the bat, it's too intense. There'd be no there'd be no, context for that.
But yeah, but don't forget to tell me the details about the stuff they were working on, such as the spoon. Remember, I love the story about the spoon and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
All right, so
Of
so
course.
please
That's
continue.
coming. That's coming.
Please
That's
continue.
coming. So, anyways, this experience that I have of this with this gray little alien, guide, is it was hard for me to process. For one, I didn't feel completely comfortable with this guide. Like I was told, hey, you're not going to like the physical appearance of this guide. And then when he took me into a room, in the room was a table, and the table was essentially just looked like it was the frame of a table, and around it were sitting lots of other aliens, gray aliens, classic aliens, not really small aliens, classic aliens, and they were looking down into the table, but there was no surface on the table, and there was like light or energy streaming out of, maybe the third eye area or the eyes. I couldn't really tell. And they were looking down into the table with this energy streaming out, and I intuitively knew that they were monitoring humans. Well, again, this is too intense for me. When journeys get too intense, I just sit down and meditate through the rest of the audio track and wait for the callback so I can leave. And because of my discomfort in this environment, I did that and I didn't further engage. And it actually led to a long period of research and contacting people like yourself. And I've been contacting a large host of people and communicating on Reddit about my experiences to try and understand, why would I meet a alien guide? Why did I see this thing? And the funny thing is I actually have a picture now on my phone of exactly what this looks like, because as I was doing my research, I was able to find someone else who had also had a similar experience or vision with aliens looking into this kind of like table kind of thing. And so it kind of
Wow.
looked like this. And
Whoa.
someone else has also seen this. And so
Incredible.
again, it's really strange to have confirmation of something that I've seen in the during one of my journeys. But at the same time, I still wasn't really totally comfortable with it because I don't understand it. And so I had to do a lot of research. Well, as you and I both know, the best research you can do is direct revelation, which is experiencing it for yourself, going out and trying to find out what's going on. Um, so I decided to journey again to meet these aliens. to meet my guide and to hopefully meet some more and to learn more about what they're doing and who they are and why they're interacting with me. So when I drop into my next journey, which was several weeks later, probably a month later or so, um, I look down at my starting point, and my hands and my arms are clearish and blue, like this clearish blue color, and I only have like three or four fingers. I'm looking at this, I'm going, my form in the app or in this space is a blue alien. And I'm just like, oh, dude, this is really weird. I've never ever uh, appeared to myself as anything other than some version of myself, some light version of myself, some higher version of myself, or a spirit animal version of myself. And so, and typically those experiences are I've met, if I ever morph into another entity like a spirit animal, I typically have had some sort of introduction. So to just be this bluish alien entity was very strange for me. And but at the same time, I felt really super comfortable. And and then I start to have this I at this point I start to actually leave my journey spot, and I begin to I don't know what to say, to project through the cosmos. And around me are all of the spirits that I work with, and there's many different spirits that I work with, um, and they're all around me. And I've met them at many different times in my life and different practices, not just through shamanic journeying. Um, and I realized, like, oh, this is like an integration process that I'm going through right now. I'm realizing, oh, these are aspects of myself that I'm seeing and witnessing and going through this integration process. And I also get this message that it's not just that these are aspects of myself or parts of myself, but that these are individual sentient um, entity, life forms, whatever energies that are also experiencing through me. So it's not just, oh, these are me. It's like they're experiencing through me. And in some ways, I've been getting into mycology recently, and so it's easy for me to explain things through mycology in some ways, almost like this arising of consciousness into the physical plane. Underneath that is this web of all of this network of consciousness that's all intertwined, and I realize, oh, this isn't just like me here, this is an intertwining of all of these other aspects of consciousness experiencing through me. And so it's a really, really beautiful process. And it actually made me really, really comfortable with this blue alien form that I had taken on during this journey. So again, I started to do more research, like, okay, what's going on? I didn't, I didn't meet this blue energy form that I'm in. I don't know where it's from. I don't know what this means. I feel very comfortable in it. So that's good. There was no fear. There was no doubt. There was no confusion. There was only a little bit of surprise and then easy acceptance and then this integration process. So I'm about to I'm about to tell you about my most recent journey. And this is one of the more intense journeys of my life. Projections and I've had many but this is an intense one and takes a little bit to explain. So up to this point, do you have any questions or anything you want to know? Because the next story is going to absorb us.
Um, no, I'm actually thrilled. I want to find out what it's gonna be about. Like, what kind of
Okay.
silly question is
Okay.
that? I wanna hear this.
So So anyway, so I do all my research. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Again, the best way to learn is through direct experience and direct revelation. And there's really no one that can interpret, this is a really core, important part of the shamanic philosophy is that your experiences and your dreams and your insights are yours and cannot be interpreted by anyone else. And to have them interpreted by anyone else is to release and give away your power. And by no means should we or do I want to give away my power. And so I also have to navigate this space very lightly as I try and understand what's going on. So after more conversations and more things, I realized that. And so I decided to journey again. And now this was only about 2 weeks ago that I had this journey that I'm going to share. I was in Kuala Lumpur with my wife, staying in a hotel there. She was working down there, and I was just traveling with her. And while she was away, I decided to journey in the hotel room after a workout. And again, I dropped in this. I put on a 15-minute drum track, and I dropped in. And when I dropped in again, I was this bluish, clearish alien form. And I was like, okay, great. This is awesome. I'm fine with this. Now, my goal here is to make contact with these aliens that I had met before. And I had an idea for how to maybe do that. So I went into the forest. I found my tree with my son. I always embrace my tree and say thank you. And I saw my son and gave him thanks and told him I love him. And I decided that I was going to do a CE5 technique for calling in alien entities, for making contact. And if anybody's familiar with CE5, it's typically done in a group of people. And it's a meditation for, locating aliens and then giving them your coordinates so you can call them in to them. And I was thinking, oh, this forest, this place that I'm at is actually a really great place to make contact because it's kind of like a neutral ground and there's a place for the spaceship to land and we can all have a little conference here or whatever. So I was like, well,
All
I'm
right,
gonna
you gotta
because
share to me that technique later because I hadn't heard about that. But like that, I would like to connect to aliens. So of course,
yeah, CE5 is very popular. It's been practiced now for 30 some years. There's one gentleman in particular, I can't remember his name right now, that created this format. And it seems to be extremely effective and practiced all over the world, typically practiced in the physical, not practiced the way that I was going to practice it. But I have learned through many things that what can be done here can also be done there. And so I decided I was going to do this CE5 meditation. And one of the reasons why I decided to do that is because automatically that my tree and my son didn't take me anywhere. They didn't grab me and pull me into the earth or take me up. And so I realized that I had a unique opportunity. So I sit down in the lotus position with my back against the tree to begin the meditation. And moments after I sat down and right when I'm about to start the CE5 process, with my back against the tree, I get absorbed into the tree. Now, I've never had this happen before where I was absorbed into the tree. And the tree starts to take off like a rocket ship. Now, this had happened in the past. And I remember thinking the first time it happened, I was like, oh, that's really weird that a tree would turn into a rocket ship. Like that's a funny way to go to the upper world. But yeah, I'm accepting here. I'm just experiencing. So I get absorbed into the tree and it starts to take off like a rocket ship. And I'm like, well, I've seen this before. It's going to take me to the upper world. This is fine. And it starts punching through the layers of the upper world. Doosh, 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 doosh. And it's going faster and faster and faster. And eventually it just busts through the top layer of the upper world, or at least that's how I would describe it. And it enters into the cosmos, just a starry galaxy, beautiful night sky kind of looking space. And it's rocketing through that. And as it rockets, it blooms out into this really beautiful geometric carved wooden flower shape. And I'm
Wow.
just like, whoa, dude, that looks awesome. And and out of the center of that flower ejects this little seed pod. And in that seed pod craft is I'm in that. And I'm projecting through as cosmos. So this thing opens up, projects me through, and I'm projecting out. And as I project out, all of the light of all the stars and all the galaxies gets absorbed into the seed pod. And I'm looking around in the pod, and it looks awesome. It's just like this flowing psychedelic different colored lights inside. And I intuitively realized, I'm like, oh dude, this is some sort of like space time travel thing going on. And I'm like, this looks amazing. And moments later, this all happened quite fast. Moments later, it busts out of the seed, it explodes out of the seed, and I am on the dock of this planet. And I feel at this time, I feel a little bit disoriented, like I can't really like connect with the body. And I realize I've never been this far away from my body before. And I'm thinking, hey, I just, there's some sort of bend in space time here, and I'm really far away. And so I remember this technique. I can't remember who teaches it, but some astral projection teacher. He has this thing where he says you can say clarity now, clarity now. You can call in clarity to an astral projection experience to lock in to where you're at. And I think lots of people have different techniques. You can look at your hands or try and interact with the environment or whatever. But I was like, well, I'm going to try this clarity now. So I say that a few times, and it helps a little bit. And then the the alien or me get out of this seed spacecraft. And as soon as we get out, we're greeted by this super tall, really angelic, light kind of being alien. And I can kind of make out the form of him, but it's just too bright and too angelic looking. But it's really tall. I get a really nice vibe from them and their greeting. And the blue alien, who is now I realize at this point that is somewhat sentient and separate from myself, expresses to this angelic alien. He says, "Hey, he's having a hard time locking in. Like I'm having a hard time, collecting myself and staying focused." And and while he's saying that, I'm kind of like also looking around, and the city looks just nuts, dude. Just white crystal light, like really hard to interpret. But I can tell that I'm in this giant dome, again, like a dome on another planet, and it's just filled with the really beautiful, magnificent city. That I can only kind of see little teeny parts of from the vantage point that we were at. And so the alien expresses this having a hard time locking in. It's kind of like, well, never mind. Let's continue on. So this angelic being leads me into this room off of the dock and look inside, and it's cool, man. Like it's all this white looking, organically grown, yet high tech space inside that just looks awesome. It
Yeah.
looks like the interior of of a really advanced civilization kind of feel. And then it takes me into a room where there is a large table with many aliens sitting around it, about 8 of them. However, all of these aliens look different from each other. Like one of it is like a really big, like hairy looking dude, and another is literally just like a point of light. And but I can tell that it's the energy of an entire entity that's sitting there at this table.
Well,
And the table's surrounded by, I don't know, maybe like 8 aliens or something. And there's an empty seat for me. So I sit down and I realize that it's like a project show and tell. And so we're meant to show the projects that we are working on in our home planets or in our lives or something. And I bring out this golden manuscript. Now, I know what this manuscript is because one, I learned of it from a previous experience where I'll tell that real quick, even though it's a little bit of a side journey. It connects a little bit. I was on another journey a couple of years ago, and I was walking out. I was in the upper world, and I was walking on this path, and the path got narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower until eventually it turned into, as thin as a rope, and then as thin as a line, and then it was literally as thin as a knife blade. And as I walked on the knife blade, it cut me in half. And those two halves of myself started floating through the air, and they floated down into this machine. And this machine was being cranked by this little like gnome, little dwarf like guy, like little like classic kind of looking little fairy like creature, forest creature. And he's cranking this machine, and those two pieces come together in the machine, and on the other side comes out this golden manuscript. And I have interpreted that manuscript as a project that I'm working on currently, for how to hold these purpose-driven gatherings that I hold at my house every week. And so I know what this book is, and I know what it is. One, I've seen it being created in the upper world, and I also know what it is. The physical project is that I'm working on in the physical. So I put this down, and then the alien next to me brings out this really cool looking spoon. And the spoon is, every time he puts it up to his mouth, it fills with food. And you can take a bite, and you can do that over and over infinitely. And I'm also assuming that it's his favorite food that he wants to eat. And I'm like, oh dude, that's awesome. That's like some way to like cure, world hunger kind of thing. Like this,
yeah,
this
yeah.
magical spoon.
When you told me about it, I
And
was like, I won that. That's a perfect project. Like
yeah,
that's
dude.
amazing. In mind, like, oh well, we just fixed hunger in the world, and you don't have to work anymore because now you have a spoon that can get you all the food you want, your favorite food, and it's probably nutritious too, like super nutritious. So
Oh yeah,
that's
dude.
and it's not a
Awesome.
and it's
It's
not a joke.
awesome.
Like it's not a joke. It's probably implemented in a planet, and maybe they want to implement it in the future in our planet. That would be amazing.
I know, dude. I know. I know. And well, that was my first thing. I was like, oh, dude, that's a freaking awesome, very useful piece of technology. Like I'm digging this. So and I'm really enthralled with this spoon. And then the next guy shows something I can't really remember what it is because again, I'm having a hard time kind of locking into this experience. And then the guy at the head of the table, excuse me, I say guy. I don't mean men. That's a colloquial term from the Midwest. So I will just say guy to mean general person. So the person at the end of the table, at the head of the table, brings out this cup, and he puts it on the table. And as soon as he puts it on the table, it starts to fill up with a liquid, and then it starts to overflow with this liquid. And he takes that cup, and it's overflowing, and he puts it on his head. And when he puts on his head, all this liquid starts to cover his body. And I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know what that is, but it looks really cool. And I can also tell that it's really important. Whatever purpose it served, it looks very important. And it kind of actually reminded me of a meditation process, a check-in process that I used to use for mindfulness when you're supposed to do a crown to toe kind of check-in. I used to use this honey substance that would pour over my body, and I would use that as the check-in. I would know where I'm at by where the honey had covered my body. So I don't know if it has something to do with that. But anyways, so I'm just like, oh man, this is too cool. But after that, I started to really lose my hold on the experience. And the alien that I'm in, my host, this blue alien, says to the rest of the table, he says, "Hey, he's having a really hard time locking in. I'm going to let him go." And as soon as he says that, I burst through his crown and through the ceiling of the room, and then I'm up floating above the city. And I can tell there's another like entity with me, like kind of like monitoring me, like making sure that I'm okay, or maybe that I don't cause any problems or something. But I'm looking out over the city, and it looks fantastic, man. Just crystalline type structural buildings and lights and bright white and super super cool. Again, we're kind of in this dome space. And then I look over and I see this big, huge like vehicle coming towards me, and I kind of get out of its way, and it's moving through the air, kind of like a whale. And it kind of looks like a whale, like it's a really big fat thing. And at the end, there's kind of almost like a tail or something like that. And it's floating through the air. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's like their public transportation or something. Like this is their bus. Looks like this huge, cool floating whale. And and I'm just blown away. Like the whole thing is just looks awesome, just looks super cool. Well, moments later, I'm I drop back into the alien body, and I am feeling fantastic, dude, just absolutely fantastic. And I stand up and I start to go to the alien next to me, and I just start to hug him. And I say to the rest of the group, I say, "Hey guys, I am a human. I'm from Earth, and we express our joy and greetings and love through touch. And so I'm going to go around the table and I'm going to give everyone a hug. And so I hug this guy and I go to the next, and maybe like more of like a like touch foreheads, and each one of them I'm more like interacting in the way that it's comfortable for them, or what works. And I'm just feeling so much love. And I get to the end of the table, like after I've hugged everyone and I make almost a complete circle, and I just start to dance, dude. I'm just like so filled with joy and so happy that I just like start to like just groove. And I can feel the entire energy of the room turn to this pink, loving joy and connection. And it's just swirling around the room. And I'm just like, oh, I just feel filled with so much love and connection and happiness. And and then moments later, the callback in the music, the shift that tells you that the journey is over. And so I give my thanks and appreciation and gratitude to everybody in the room, and my thanks to this angelic, tall alien person that I think that is their planet, that I visited. And I get back in the ship and head back, and everything goes in reverse. This is how you traverse experiences in reverse in shamanic journeys.
Okay.
I think part of it is so you don't get lost, and the other part is so you can remember the experience. So you're playing it in one direction, and then you're playing it in reverse, which locks in the experience.
All right.
And I go to my tree and I thank the tree and my son and the forest, and then I open my eyes. And And I'm not exactly sure what all of that means. I know that it was very real, it was very intense. And I'm now working with a, uh, a transpersonal psychologist and shamanic healer that's been doing this for 30 some years, and talking with lots of friends and trying to unpack that whole event, which parts of it I understand, most parts I don't. Um, and parts of it I have intuitions about, which I should probably follow. Um, but yeah, that's where I find myself now.
Yeah, and guys, let me tell you that Elijah has some amazing stories. I mean, these stories and the way he tells them, I'm fascinated. And we've been talking about what this could all mean. And honestly, I think what he's experiencing, well, first of all, let me tell you, yeah, what he's experiences, the way he's having these experiences, the shamanic yearning, it's a technique that is very similar to astral projection, and that's the technique that works the most, the best for him. And the other thing is these experiences, of course, they are real. Like I believe they're 100% real. I don't know what you think. I believe they are real, but they're just happening in a different dimension, of course. Um, it's it has to do maybe with what we call reality shifting. That we are part of the of we are part of the of this three-dimensional reality, but there is a part of our consciousness that also interacts in the fifth dimension, and higher dimensions, and also parallel dimensions. And like you said, it's like a grid, like a net, like a web, where this consciousness are all connected, and they're also connected with other beings that are also part of that collective consciousness. So to me, and these are absolutely not dreams. I mean, they are maybe related to the dream world, but the dream world can also be. It's also a reality. Actually, it's a subtler reality because the dreams are happening in the fifth dimension. However, these experiences you're talking about don't have like, you know, much of, let's say, subconscious creations from the mind, but I believe what you're seeing are actually, like um, outward experiences that are being shown to you, and not actually being just projected from your mind. I mean, there might be some stuff that is being projected from your mind, but I think most of it is like a outward experience that is being given to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was my original question from the first journey I ever took was I have, of course, dreamed. And as a child, I've also had, lucid dreams I've had lucid dreams, and I've also had, meditations and some sort of visions and something. But what shocked me in the first place, and this has continued to be just a wonderful, pleasant surprise, is how you can enter into a space that seems to exist independent of you and your awareness.
Wow.
And as you're in that space, you are fully conscious, able to make decisions and able to, if you want, extract yourself from that environment or engage in it. You can make decisions, you can have conversations, and the entities or the spaces that you interact with are fully formed and seem complete, in cases seem sentient or seem static, meaning that they exist with or without you. And that is what is so beautiful and bizarre about these things, is that I agree with you, doesn't feel like a creation of my mind.
No.
um this is, and but yeah, at the same time, it's tapping into a higher level of source that we're all created from. So when you say, oh, it's not myself, I don't mean that we're not all one. which I think we're all very aware of, but it's tapping into an awareness of self that I'm not aware of and I'm able to interact with as an individuated form of consciousness with other individuated forms of consciousness, and we're able to learn and interact and bond or heal from that. And yeah, 100%. This is I have convinced myself over years now, and listening to others too, that there's enough evidence there to me to show that this is not a creation of the mind.
Yeah. So, as I was saying at the beginning, I have the intuition that these experiences, this reality shifting, this um, other consciousness, these other dimensions that you are experiencing and that I'm also experiencing, and that apparently a lot of people are experiencing lately, has to do with some changes that are happening on this earth that have been prophesized that with the new age that we would have like a um, awakening, like um, like a shift, like something was going to happen that our ordinary lives, our ordinary three-dimensional, boring system lives, were going to transcend into something better, something new. And this was the concept of the new age that they had in the started in the 60s, I think, or even 50s, I don't know. Um, and you know, I've been into spirituality for a long time, and I've always studied this, I've always heard about this, and I had a lot of faith. But after maybe more than a decade, I wasn't really seeing it happening, and I guess I was becoming a little bit frustrated or a little bit like losing hope. And then boom, these things started happening again, where people come up to me and they tell me about their experiences, and then I'm having these experiences at the same time, and not only about reality shifting, but about aliens. So I believe there's something really going on that is happening very strong in this year that has to do with shifting to a higher reality. So I guess many people, just like you and just like me, are going to start having maybe lucid dreams or astral experiences, or in daily life suddenly they're going to see themselves into some sort of trance, and they're going to see something that is higher, so a dimension that is like with fewer rules, like the dimension you are talking about, these worlds where you can interact with the beings there, but you can also you know be on your own, and you have all those freedoms because you have less laws. Those are signs of higher dimensions. And the other thing that we were saying is about aliens. A lot of people were asking me about aliens this January. That they, if I believed in aliens, if I had had experiences with aliens, that they had these encounters with aliens, and I was like, well, I did have an encounter with aliens actually in three-dimensional world. That's another story that I want to reserve for my next video. But that was pretty much like the only experience that I remembered having with aliens, except for the one experience I just had this morning that I want to talk about in another video. Um, Experiences with elementals, elemental creatures in the astral world. I did have, and I did have a lot of them, but experiences with aliens in the astral world. I'm just beginning to have it with this one experience that I want to talk about. And so, oh my God, Elijah, I mean, I don't know what to say.
I don't either.
But yeah, like these experiences that you're telling me are wonderful, and I'm sure you have more experiences we can talk about. And I would like to reserve that for our next interview. What do you say?
I would love to continue to share. I would love to continue to share.
All right. So thank you so much, dude. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Elia.
for having me. Thank you.
And we'll talk again next time.
Of course, of course. Looking forward to it.
Take care.